Seika was an overpowered exorcist who was assassinated. When he reincarnated, he decided to live a boring, neat life like yours, but when he discovered that the hero was a baddie, he decided to clap her and her enemies for fun. He had been reincarnated into a world with a completely different flow of magic. Though his new body lacked magical power, it was blessed with an immense amount of spiritual energy. Each morning, Seika would gather leaves and use his exorcist arts to craft shikigami, giving life to mice and crows to serve him. Meanwhile, his half-brother Glai constantly bullied him for being a worthless bastard. Even when Seika pleaded for him to stop, Glai would grab him by the collar and raise his fist. But one day, the crows Seika had created suddenly attacked Glai. When Luft rushed in to drive them away, he noticed that the crows completely ignored Seika, which made him start to suspect something strange about his younger brother. In this new world, Seika was shunned for being the child of a mistress, treated as an outcast by his own family. Still, he endured in silence, spending each day working in the fields, preparing paper to craft more talismans and quietly honing his spiritual arts. Seika knew it must have been Glai, but when he screamed at Ifa to get back to work, he reminded Seika that he would never have a slave, since a magicless loser like him would never be able to enter the Imperial Lodonia Magic Academy. However, Blaze appeared and commanded Glai to get back to his magical lessons. As they walked away, Seika asked his father if he could join them. In the training field, his elder brother Luft launched a vortex that drilled the stone apart, while Glai released a fireball to scorch the stone. Glai was glad that Seika would embarrass himself in front of their father, but as Seika wielded the wand and remembered his vow to hide his power in this life, he realized that the strong always exploited the weak. So he activated his exorcist arts. They were all shocked since no one had ever cast a blue fireball before, so Glai took the credit and told them that his magic must have remained in the wand. However, when Seika asked his father if he could learn magic, Blaze told him it was useless to train a talentless mage. For the next 4 years, Seika began learning the world's language while secretly spying on his siblings, yet Blaze continued to wonder if he was half demon. By the time Seika turned 11, he remembered the 7 deities he had sealed away and was finally prepared to summon his least threatening servant into this world. As an ancient door materialized before his eyes, a hot girl emerged, though Seika could not recognize who she was. When she jumped on him, he realized it was definitely the dumb Yuki, but wondered why she was no longer a beautiful woman. Realizing that his spiritual power must be weaker in this young body, she swore she would serve him forever. Seika revealed he was only testing the dimensional gate's abilities in this world, and as he tried sealing her away, she transformed into a small fox, swearing that she would never leave his side again. The following morning, Glai began screaming at Yifa for dropping water on his clothes. As he scolded her, he said he would be willing to forgive her if she came to his room and promised to educate her on what it meant to be a slave. When Seika told Glai to stop abusing her, he tried punching him, but he blocked his attack. Glai stared at him before pulling away, telling him that he was playing with his life. Once he was gone, Seika told Yifa to never go to Glai's room, so she promised that she would not. Then, Yifa asked him to follow her outside as she showed him a dying baby Evie. He asked her to turn away to conceal his powers, and after pulling a hair and infusing it with his talisman, the Shikami was sacrificed to heal the Vaporeon. Yifa was shocked that he was able to use magic when he had been born without any mana. When he thought that she might also be hiding a secret ability, she told him it was not like she could see spirits or anything like that. However, he revealed that he was also able to see the spirits, but he suspected that she could see something even greater than him. Wondering what it was, she revealed that he had discovered the secret she always concealed, which is her ability to see the elementals in the world. She explained that it was strange since every elemental appeared to avoid him. Although he did not know the reason, he realized that she was capable of controlling them, something he was never able to master in his previous life. Realizing he had finally found the person he had been looking for, he asked her if she would like to learn magic. Activating his Shikami, he summoned a fireball into the air. She had never tried to use magic before, so she asked the fireball to disappear politely. When it did not listen, she tried begging the fireball to leave. However, she screamed that no one would miss its ugly ass, causing the flame to disappear out of existence. Seika realized that he was lucky to find someone who could dispel magic, and asked her to keep her powers a secret between them. Throughout the weeks, he trained her until she was able to control the flow of her own mana. As the seasons passed, they continued their training together until she was finally able to master the art of dispelling magic. Seika's 12th birthday arrived, but unlike his brothers, he did not receive any presents or a cake, and even his father was not there. Although he had grown used to their mistreatment, Glai called for Seika, saying they would be training him. Because his mother was a mistress, the only path left for his weak body was to join the army. Just then, a maid screamed that a large monster had appeared and was heading directly toward their mansion. Hearing those words, Seika revealed that it was already in their mansion vicinity. As the Elder Newt destroyed the tree in the close distance, Glai ran away for his pathetic, worthless life while Luft tried commanding the maids to evacuate to the mansion. He saw that Seika was running in the opposite direction. At the same time, the Eldern was about to devour Yifa, but before Seika could summon his talisman to save her, she activated the elementals and burned the beast away. Once she was safe, he commanded the beast to follow him, and as he leapt into the sky, all of the servants in the mansion began watching him. He then cast a poison spell, and the veins inside the creature's body began absorbing the poison, but he had secretly completed its taming, leaving his brother wondering how he defeated it with a single attack. Everyone believed he was incredibly powerful, so he waved back at them, glad that everything had gone according to his plan. Since his reincarnation into the second life, he would be cunning, and he would finally gain the happiness he desired. Blaze had witnessed the battle and decided to hold a feast in honor of his illegitimate foster son. Although the attention infuriated Glay, Blaze still wished to reward Sika for defending the mansion. When asked what he desired, Sika requested permission to enroll in the Imperial Lodonia Magic Academy. Blaze agreed, and Sika then asked that Yifa be allowed to accompany him as his servant. Blaze objected, claiming she lacked mana, but Sika told him to stay quiet and simply watch. Handing Yifa his wand, Sika instructed her to cast a large flame spell. Moved by her devotion and her wish to stay by Sika's side forever, Yifa awakened the surrounding fire elementals. As she chanted the incantation, a massive blaze erupted outside the window, lighting up the night. Turning to his father, Sika asked if he was satisfied. Blaze, now convinced, agreed to enroll them both. However, Glai protested angrily, saying it violated their family's tradition that forbade two brothers from following the same path. Blaze replied that their traditions would indeed be upheld by sending Glai to join the army instead. He then scolded Glai for wasting his years in bad company while Sika had trained diligently every day. Unable to accept the insult, Glai challenged Sika to a duel, declaring that if he lost, Sika would be banished from their home. Though Blaze said he could refuse, Sika accepted without hesitation. Their father agreed to oversee the duel under the condition that no real swords or mid-level magic be used. Later, as Sika crafted more talismans in preparation, Luft visited him, apologizing for arriving late to wish him a happy birthday and gifting him a glass pen. He admitted he regretted not being kinder throughout their lives, but expressed pride in how much his brother had grown. Then, he asked him to go easy on Glai, as he knew that Sika was stronger than all of them. Under the two moons, Yuki scoffed that Luft's present was worthless, but Sika told her that she was the one who was worthless. However, he realized something was off and commanded her to hide. The window blasted open, and when he looked outside, he saw Glai in the field screaming that their duel had begun. As they faced off, Glai believed that Sika had only defeated the monster because he was lucky. Wanting to fight him to the death, he abandoned their father's conditions and summoned a magical sigil, casting flame spell to incinerate his brother. He thought his spell was far stronger than that of his worthless slave, but Sika told him it could never be compared to Yifa's flames. Shocked that he was still alive, Glai summoned wind spell to pierce his brother, but a light magic barrier protected him. Sika then took out his talisman as Glai began releasing all of his spells. In that moment, Sika commanded Glai that he was forbidden to move, freezing all of his neurons before twisting the talisman and breaking his arm. However, Sika revealed that Glai was only feeling the pain. When Glai wondered who Sika really was, he decided to accept those words as surrendering. In that moment, he healed his brother's arm, leaving him to collapse onto the ground. As Sika stared at his worthless face, he remembered Glai calling him lucky for defeating the Elder Newt, but he thought it was hilarious. After all, he had been preparing for 6 months to summon his second divine deity. A massive cyclops, Nudo, entered the realm and rushed towards Sika, declaring that he was glad to serve him once more. However, Yuki reminded Nudo that she was the first one he had summoned. Sika then asked the Cyclops to follow his Shikami into the mountain and drive the Elder Newt into their forests. He had purposely lured the Elder Newt toward their mansion so everyone would acknowledge his power, allowing him to attend the Magic Academy instead of Glai. However, Yuki wondered why he was creating such complicated plans, especially when he could take everything he wanted in a world filled with weak humans. Sika then reminded her that those weak humans were the ones who had killed him. In this second life, he desired to become one of them, since his path to absolute power had only cast him away into isolated loneliness. When spring finally arrived, Luft wished for his brother to stay safe. After Yifa yawned, Luft wondered if she had stayed up all night, so Sika revealed that she had been working on something hard in his room all night. As their carriage began pulling away, Sika decided to reward her for studying. She promised that she would treasure it, and he revealed that it would draw the elementals toward her because he wanted her to become the strongest elementalist possible. Looking out the window, he realized they had already reached the Magic Academy and wondered how time had managed to pass so quickly. Back inside his office, Blaze realized that Sika must have arrived already and recalled that stormy night when a mysterious assassin delivered his brother's child to him. But Blaze wondered if his brother had truly died after disappearing into the demon continent. His child was one of the only humans born with black hair and black eyes, so Luft kept his distance, while Glai saw him as an enemy. Blaze wondered if he was a demon because he could summon blue fireballs without possessing any magic, and he had used poison on the Elder Newt when no human had ever done so before. Blaze felt guilty for sending Glai to the army, but he realized that if Sika were to witness the horrors of war, he might become the next demon king who eradicates humanity instead of the hero who saves it. Once they arrived at Seika's dorm, he revealed that Aoife's room would be next to his. Those words made her sad as she thought she could come to his room at night. After hearing that, she ran out crying, and Yuki grew angry that the worthless slave did not know her place. When Sika wondered what she meant, Yuki revealed that Aoife was in love with him and wanted him to use her as a slave to fulfill her fantasies. Hearing those words, Seika realized that he would truly never understand how girls think. Yuki told him to study or he would have a hard time, but he realized that Yifa could make something else hard. At the prestigious Magic Academy, he noticed that a mysterious pool of mana had been accumulating. The examiner, Professor Karen, called for everyone to evaluate their mana levels. When it was Saika's turn, Professor Karen asked him to place his hand on the crystal sphere, explaining that it would shine white if he had aptitude for all elements, although it had never happened before. This was the magical system of the world, where there were 4 primary elements to cast from, but there also existed light and shadow magic, similar to the magic he had invented in his previous life. As Yifa infused her mana into the sphere, Professor Karen discovered that she had an aptitude for wind and fire magic. But when it was Sika's turn, nothing appeared, so Professor Karen thought he might have light or shadow aptitude. However, Saika revealed that he had no magical power, so everyone assumed he was planning to use his connections to enter the Magic Academy. A girl suddenly then screamed at them to shut their mouths, introducing herself as Amyu. As she reached out for the sphere, a white beam of light blinded all the applicants. When she walked away, they realized she had mastered all 4 elements. Seika was shocked to see her because even though her hair was a different color, she was the same person he had known very closely in his past life. That night, Princess Fiona grew worried, and at the same time, the acting demon lord gave a single order to his general Galeos to crush the hero. The next day, after Saika completed the written exam, he noticed Amyu training with a sword and wondered just how strong she really was. Out on the training grounds, the scholarly examiner, Professor Cordell, announced that they would now assess each student's elemental power one by one. As the students demonstrated their abilities, Saika observed that most could only wield a single element and none with much strength. When Yifa's turn came, she stepped forward and cast a flame spell. The blast was so intense it nearly scorched the testing stone. Everyone gasped, astonished that she could cast without an incantation. But Yifa calmly said she wasn't done yet. Even Seika had no idea what she was planning. She raised her wand again, conjuring a wind spell so powerful that the stone simply vanished. As she apologized for destroying the target, Seika thought her magic was incredible and was moved by her dedication, realizing she had been practicing in secret. Finally, it was Seika's turn. He conjured a brilliant blue fireball that burned through the target, stunning everyone. Analyzing the stone, he noted it was made of granite and decided to merge earth and metal elements to perform a crystallization spell that shattered the target completely. Even Professor Cordell admitted he had never witnessed anything like it. Seika, however, apologized, claiming his spell was a secret technique, knowing he could never reveal the truth that he wasn't truly using magic at all. Approaching the water target next, Seika summoned an invisible water Shikigami and infused it with shadow energy, unleashing a torrent that froze the entire field. Satisfied that he had already gone too far, he ended his demonstration. Yifa laughed proudly, saying she was lucky to have the strongest master alive. As the sun set, Professor Cordell stood speechless, wondering how 2 students with such low magical aptitude had unleashed the most powerful spells in the Academy's history. Yet even so, he knew this was only the beginning, for somewhere out there was someone even stronger, a prodigy who had mastered every type of magic at an early age. Professor Karen realized she might be the hero, the one destined to be born when the Demon Lord revived. The results of the exam were finally announced, and when Seika searched for their names, Yifa begged him not to abandon her if she failed, but he saw that he was ranked 3rd on the list, while Yifa was ranked even higher than him. He congratulated her, though he was shocked that she had surpassed him in the practical exam. At the very top of the list was Amyu, and C realized she was the one person he had always been searching for. Several days after the announcement, an invitation was sent to all those who had enrolled in the Magic Academy. Yifa wondered if her skirt was too short, but Seika told her it was not because he wanted it to be even shorter. As they walked toward the entrance ceremony, Seika sensed dark magic coming from behind the bushes. Yifa realized something was off, as she noticed dark elementals hiding inside. After walking deeper into the forest, they found a demonic sigil. Although Yifa thought it was evil, Seika told her to ignore it since it belonged to the school, all while secretly releasing invisible talismans to monitor the area. Inside the hall, when the entrance ceremony began, Amyu walked up to the stage and announced that she would be the representative for the new students. At the same time, the magic circle outside lit up, and Seika sensed monsters drawing closer to the hall. The door suddenly exploded, and lesser demons appeared before their eyes. The useless students panicked and began running away, but Seika noticed that the demons were searching for someone among them. When one of the demons tried to kill a girl, Amyu had appeared to save her. As she evaded the demon's strike, she launched wind spells across his body and shouted at the disgusting students to get out of her way. However, Seika realized that the demons were too slow and suspected they were being controlled from a distance. Scanning the outside, he found the caster hidden in the forest. He told Yifa to use her magic to run and hide if things became dangerous, then teleported away, leaving his talisman behind. Before long, he began walking toward the demon, reciting a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue, your mom's an ugly gorilla that belongs in the zoo. Enraged and looking to end him immediately, the demon summoned lesser demons from a portal. As he commanded them to attack, Seika cast a spell of gravitational pull, ending the monsters before him. When the last one froze under a protective spell, Seika opened a portal beneath him and sealed him inside another realm. Realizing Seika could use teleportation magic, the demon prepared to fight seriously. He summoned swords from smaller portals and introduced himself as a demon of metal who controlled both fire and earth elements. When Seika attempted to cast a spell, Galeos extinguished it instantly, claiming that none of his spells would work on him. As Sika ignited paper talismans, Gallios shielded himself from the flames, but when he summoned more papers, Gallios burned them instantly. Seeking to eliminate him, Gallios hurled a sword, and though Sika dodged it, the blade slashed his face, and he realized that it had been teleported back. Gallios declared that he could use black teleportation magic. He cast a flame towards Sika, but as Sika leapt away, Gallios materialized behind him and slashed off his arm in that instant. However, as Sika managed to survive the attack, he began wondering why Gallios had been spying on the students through the eyes of the lesser demons. Gallios revealed that he was searching for the hero to fulfill the divine prophecy of the reincarnation of the demon lord. He went on to say that he had already found her, but realizing who he was aiming for, Sika moved, but Gallios launched a dozen swords to eliminate him. Sika evaded them and leapt over another, yet Gallios' double blade sliced him at the same time. With one strike, Gallios sent him to the afterlife. Believing Sika to be dead, Gallios turned away, preparing to search for Amu, but the sound of Sika's voice reciting ancient incantations drew his attention back. He spotted him balanced on top of a blade. Wondering how he was still alive, Gallios hurled a sword into his skull only for it to disintegrate. Sika revealed that he had resurrected himself, explaining that he had already set a spell to eliminate anything that did not belong to his body. Even so, Gallios believed he could end him regardless, so he summoned 100 swords, vowing to annihilate the hero once Sika was dead. Hearing those words, Sika scoffed that Gallios was a fool and declared that true strength could only be defined by the powerful allies one has. Gallios dismissed his words, claiming that only the weak depended on allies. He tried to end him, but Sika evaded the storm of blades and cast a spell that unleashed a massive waterfall. By the time the waters crashed down, Gallios had already teleported away. However, when Gallios tried attacking from above, Sika had already anticipated the strike. He summoned Raiju, a ferret-like deity that struck the demon with lightning. Yet by the time the smoke cleared, Sika realized that Gallios was nowhere in sight until he stabbed him from behind without warning. But it was all part of Sika's plan, for his body suddenly exploded before Gallios' eyes. Though the demon managed to survive, he began oozing with a red aura, confident that Sika would soon run out of talismans. He prepared to end the fight, but Sika revealed more than 1,000 talismans, explaining that he had spent his entire life creating them so he would be ready for any battle. Casting the dimensional gate, he summoned Mizuchi, and a dozen portals opened as a dragon emerged, its massive form filling the sky. It lunged at Gallios, attempting to devour him, before ascending toward the moon and consuming his body entirely. At the sight of this, Sika was relieved that the demon had been eliminated. Yet when he attempted to return the dragon to the other realm, it resisted and tried to escape. Realizing it was heading toward the school, he quickly set his talismans on it, redirecting its path before sealing it back inside the realm. Still, he wondered how a weak deity like Mizuchi had been able to break free. The answer soon came to him, as his young body was still too weak, so he would need to grow stronger and older before he could properly command the remaining 4 deities. Just then, Yuki jumped on his body, revealing that she had been hiding the entire time. She scolded him, thinking it was reckless that he had allowed himself to be killed. However, Sika revealed that it was all part of his plan, as he could already use his Shikigami to resurrect himself from the dead multiple times instantly. By the time he returned to the hall, he realized that all the students had been injured, but Ifa told him that Amu had killed all the lesser demons. Hearing these words, Sika realized that Amu was the perfect person he needed as an ally. After all, he could remain hidden while using her to advance with his plans. Although he needed to become her friend, he admitted to himself that he would not be sad if she lost her life in the end, as long as it secured his happiness. In that moment, he vowed to make her the strongest person in the world, even if it meant defeating the Demon King himself. A month had passed since Sika began attending the Magic Academy alongside Yifa. When he spotted Amu and tried to greet her, she coldly told him to do humanity a favor by ending his miserable life. Moments later, a clay jar appeared above them, spilling liquid, but Sika quickly teleported them away to safety. However, sensing something suspicious, he returned to the scene. There, Professor Cordell appeared at a window and apologized for the accident. After retrieving the spilled liquid, Cordell explained that it was a catalyst for his research. When Sika asked about the jar's purpose, the professor claimed he was simply trying to levitate it to the 3rd floor, yet Sika knew only dark magic could control gravity, which made him suspect that Cordell was hiding something. Later, during class, Professor Karen announced that the school's anniversary was approaching. He assigned Amu and Yifa to deliver the new student roster as part of the ceremonial offering. When Sika overheard this, he realized their route would take them near Gallios' magical circle. He immediately volunteered to go in Yifa's place and instructed her to refuse her mission. Though reluctant, Professor Karen eventually agreed. That evening, as Sika and Yifa left the academy, he told her that Amu was in danger. He explained that he had taken her place to protect her because Amu's battle with demons had made her a target. Yifa teasingly asked if he liked Amu for her beauty and red hair, but Sika clarified that it was her strength that intrigued him. He only wanted to be her friend. Hearing this, Yifa vowed that she too could become stronger, but Sika told her he wanted her support instead, believing Amu's power had left her isolated all her life. On the day of the Academy's anniversary, Professor Karen handed them the roster for the ceremony. As they made their way into the forest, Amu demanded to know why Sika had volunteered to replace Yifa. He told her that he wanted to be her friend and that he wished to have a long conversation with her. However, Amu believed she could not satisfy him, especially since he already had a slave with massive milkers. but he told her that she was wrong. As she thought he was an ugly creep, her mind was shocked in that instant. At the same time, Sika sensed the presence of a dark spell and moved toward its source. Just then, they came across a magic circle, and at that moment, a portal opened, instantly teleporting them. They were transported into a dungeon where a group of lizard creatures appeared before them, and without hesitation, Amu charged at them. As she leapt to the other side, she unleashed a fireball that completely obliterated them. However, when an orc appeared behind her and was about to end her life, Sika cast a spell that crushed its head with a spike. As they began searching for the exit, Sika cast a new spell to light their way, and Amu was shocked to discover that he could also use light magic. At the same time, he was casting talisman signals to guide his Shikigami on the outside so they could detect their location. Suddenly, a group of goblins rushed at them, but Amu cut them down with swift strikes. As she managed to block an attack, she slashed a monster's arm off, but before she realized it, the creature returned to finish her off and smacked her into the wall. However, as the monsters prepared to terminate her, Sika cast a wood spell that impaled them with stakes. At that moment, Amu lost consciousness, and the remaining goblins charged towards Sika. He realized he could finally use his true powers, so he summoned Omukade from the divine gates of hell and eliminated all the goblins before him. By the time Amu woke up, she saw that all the monsters had been slain. Noticing that her head was still hurting, Sika cast a light barrier around them and realized she was under a curse, since the pain disappeared after the barrier was formed. When she believed there were no curse sigils on her body, she asked him to check her back before removing her clothes, and found nothing. Sika then revealed that he had wanted her to take off her clothes, since he already had another solution prepared. With a strand of her hair, he transferred the curse onto one of his talismans, telling her that it would now serve as her substitute. They sat together for hours, but during that time Amu wondered if Sika had kissed Yifa or even developed a plot with her yet. When Sika told her that he had not kissed Yifa, Amu thought he was lame since shy girls like her were always freaky. He then reminded her that she had just taken her clothes off in a dungeon. After he had been knocked unconscious, they continued eliminating all the goblins until they finally reached the boss's chamber. As the Naga prepared to face them, Sika activated his stone magic and released impaling stakes, but the creature nearly burned his face off with acid. Sika managed to evade, and Amu countered with a wind lance, but the spell failed to pierce the monster's thick scales. Before it could retaliate, Sika summoned a spear that nailed the creature into the ground. Amu immediately ignited it with a fireball, and the moment the fire erupted, Amu descended upon the Naga and stabbed its body, killing it instantly. As Sika ran toward her, Amu leapt onto him, revealing that it was the first time she had ever defeated a dungeon boss. When Yuki asked Sika why he had not teleported out the entire time, he revealed that he wanted to have fun with Amu and give her battle experience so she could someday become the strongest. Before long, they came across a mithril sword, so Sika pulled it out of the monster, causing the creature to disintegrate before their eyes. As he handed the sword to Amu, he noticed a ring on the ground and realized it was infused with magic. When Amu asked him what he would do when he got older, he promised that he would go adventuring with her again. Hearing this, she grew happy and told him that it was a promise. After escaping the dungeon, Sika informed Professor Karen about the secret labyrinth hidden beneath the school, but concealed both the existence of Amu's curse and the true source of his own magic. That night, when Sika arrived at Professor Cordell's lab, he revealed that he had already uncovered his plan and mentioned that Amu had begun to recover. Realizing that he had been exposed, Professor Cordell wondered how Sika had discovered his secret. Sika explained that it was impossible for demons to have drawn a magical circle within the school, and since Professor Cordell had the ugliest face among all the instructors, he had suspected him immediately. Deciding to reveal the truth, Professor Cordell removed his disguise and admitted that he was a spy for the demons. He explained that the potion inside the pot was actually a revolutionary curse capable of killing anyone as if it were an ordinary illness. Professor Cordell revealed that his true target was the hero, but Sika dismissed him as a fool and displayed his talisman, showing that he had already removed the curse from Amu. As Professor Cordell summoned a demon, Sika spilled its blood onto his own body and declared that he had discovered the curse's condition. Now drenched in demon blood, he began casting a spell to transfer the curse back onto its creator. This was the power he carried over from his previous life as the cursed exorcist. He told Professor Cordell that those who curse others dig 2 graves. As Professor Cordell's organs began to rupture, Sika revealed that he was the only one in this world who knew how to dispel curses, making it unlucky for the demons to have encountered him in this lifetime. While walking upstairs, Yifa asked how he had known it was Professor Cordell, so Sika explained that his Shikigami had detected the same pollen both on Professor Cordell's body and within the demonic circle. Later that day, when Sika handed the magical ring to Yifa, she noticed that elementals were drawn toward it. At that moment, Sika saw Amu passing by, and when he tried calling out to her, she told him to jump off a cliff and Isekai himself already. 1 year later, as they began their sophomore year, the headmaster's aide appeared before Sika and his servant, informing them that the headmaster wanted to see them immediately. Although Sika had a bad feeling about the summons, he noticed a girl secretly observing them from the shadows. The next day, when they entered the headmaster's office, she greeted them warmly. Studying Saika's face, she remarked that he resembled his uncle, leaving Saika puzzled, as his father had never mentioned having a brother. Without elaborating, the headmaster changed the subject and invited him to join the mixed discipline tournament in the capital, a renowned competition between mages and swordsmen. She explained that he would serve as one of the Magic Academy's representatives. To formalize this, she called in a new student to the office. Stepping forward, the girl introduced herself as Mabel, someone Saika had never met before. Before he could respond, Amu interrupted in frustration, complaining that she hadn't been invited and demanding to know if Sika planned to participate. Still intrigued by Mabel's presence, Sika said he was interested in the tournament and wanted to see what it held. As they left the academy, Amu grumbled that Mabel had probably been chosen by a noble family and had never known real hardship. To their surprise, Mabel suddenly appeared behind them and calmly told Amu that she was the one who had never truly experienced hardship. While Amu was glad to finally meet her replacement, Mabel explained that she was never going to be selected in the first place and she was too weak to fight. Hearing this, Amu grew irritated and ordered two morons to hand over their practice swords, challenging Mabel to a duel to see who the real weakling was. Mabel accepted without hesitation, and the moment she picked up the sword and assumed her stance, Saika immediately recognized her skill, realizing she was just as experienced as Amu. Eager to evaluate her strength, he declared the start of the fight. Amu charged forward with full force, but Mabel blocked her strike with dark magic and the two clashed swords fiercely. With one decisive move, Mabel knocked Amu's bent sword from her hand, easily winning the spar. As Mabel turned to leave, she told Amu that she was useless for someone destined to be the hero. When Amu tried to protest, saying they were not supposed to use magic, Mabel dismissed her words, stating that excuses would only make her weaker. Right then, Mabel warned Saika that he was going to get hurt in the tournament. He thanked her for her words before she walked away. The following day, the group set off for the capital to attend the tournament. Along the way, Saika silently cursed his misfortune, wondering why he had to be stuck with Yifa and Amu's disgusting faces. Yifa quickly reminded him that she was his servant and had to remain by his side at all times. Amu, on the other hand, claimed that she had never been to the capital before and wanted to see it, but Saika knew she was lying, realizing her only real desire was to watch Mabel compete in the tournament. When he asked Amu where she planned to sleep, she replied that she would stay in Yifa's bed. Mabel, watching their antics, thought they were all pathetic because despite being the same age, they acted like children who lacked any seriousness. But Yifa then revealed that she was actually a year older than them, which left Amu shocked. After thinking about it, however, Amu admitted that it explained Yifa's massive personality. By the time they reached the capital, the girls noticed that Sika had become carriage sick. To make matters stranger, they discovered that Mabel had slipped away from the group. Before long, they arrived at the registration board, where Seika decided to investigate why the academy had chosen him as a representative instead of Amu. The following day, as the tournament was about to begin, Seika examined his amulet and realized it was designed to absorb magical attacks, though it would shatter if it absorbed too many. Just then, the announcer introduced Seika as the first participant, and his opponent Dennis, a fighter from the Garl's mercenary band, boldly declared that this would be Seika's last day alive. Seika, however, brushed him off, claiming he had a headache and felt tired, and when the mercenary assumed he was only making excuses, Seika calmly declared to end the fight in a single second. Enraged by his words, Dennis charged forward the moment the round began and stabbed him, yet instead of landing a fatal blow, the blade pierced a talisman. Seika then instantly materialized behind him and blasted him into the wall. As the crowd gasped in shock, the announcer declared Seika the winner. While he was walking through the tunnel, Yuki intercepted him and urged him to purposely lose his next match, fearing he was already drawing far too much attention to himself. But when Seika rejoined the girls, the second round of the tournament began as Bellum from the Sage stepped into the arena to face his opponent Kyle, a guard from the Rugrock Merchant Association. As the match started, Kyle immediately cast a spell that froze his enemy in place, and with the sorcerer unable to move, the crowd could only wonder why Bellum stood motionless. Then, Kyle closed the distance and pierced him, making Bellum the first fatality of the tournament. As Kyle turned to leave, Seika studied his expression closely, and from the look in his eyes, he recognized him as a seasoned killer with a dark history that should have made him a wanted criminal. He began to suspect that Kyle had been deliberately sent to compete in the tournament. On top of that, Seika had already discerned that Kyle was a caster, and one of the rare few capable of channeling spiritual power into their gaze, cursing their opponent through the power of an evil eye. When the second round began, the announcer called Seika into the arena. However, when his opponent appeared, he realized it was merely a puppet controlled by Labinate, a puppeteer mage. She proudly declared that it was designed specifically for anti-magic combat and that Seika had no chance of victory. As the match started, Seika summoned an invisible creature that swiftly sliced through the golem with rapid strikes, causing it to collapse into pieces. The announcer assumed Seika had destroyed it with wind magic, but when Seika threatened to erase Labinate from existence, she surrendered immediately. As he exited through the tunnel, Seika felt relieved that his secret technique hadn't been exposed. He told Yuki that he could have been disqualified for summoning a monster inside the arena since beast incarnation was strictly forbidden. By the time he rejoined the girls, the next round was already starting, and Seika noticed that Mabel was about to face her opponent. His name was Howlo, the Earth Mage, and he thought he would easily crush Mabel with his Earth powers. As the fight began, Howlo launched a rock blast towards her, but she sliced it easily. Shocked at the sight, the loser continued launching rock blasts, but Mabel sliced everything. As she began walking closer to him, Howlo realized he was screwed and started casting a stone wall for defense, supporting it with another spell, but Mabel hurled daggers into it, shattering it instantly. Unwilling to surrender, the loser summoned half a dozen walls to keep her away, but Mabel destroyed them in an instant and Seika thought she was using gravity magic. At the same time, Hallow began running away, but as Mabel rushed towards him, she sliced his staff and the man's life was already flashing before his eyes. Having no other choice, he decided to surrender, and the announcer declared her to be the winner, calling her the Mabel, the red-haired hero. But as Seika heard those words, he began wondering how Mabel became known as the hero. So Yaifa revealed that the second hero in history was called Mabel, and that this Mabel also happened to wield her sword. Although it seemed like a good cover story, Seika knew she was hiding something and wanted to discover her secrets. At dawn, a loser was preparing a message for the demons. But as he sent off the pigeon, a larger bird captured it, and at that moment Seika appeared telling him he had already discovered that he was a spy for the demons and that he had successfully trailed him here. However, when Seika demanded to know what was inside the message, the man told him to get lost and began to leave. But as he thought Seika was defenseless, he tried to end his life, so Seika cast a spell restraining him with binding vines. Realizing Seika had already discovered the secret, the loser began wondering how he found him. Seika revealed that he had spied on him through the eyes of an owl and demanded to know who he was spying on. When the loser refused to answer, Seika revealed that he would interrogate his soul. As he summoned Satori, the fifth deity from the heavenly gates of hell, it began to read his mind, giving him nightmare fuel by revealing every single thought he had. Just as Seika was asking the questions, Satori revealed that he was after the hero Mabel Crane. She was born at the same time as the ancient prophecies, and she happened to be a female with red hair who was the strongest wielder of the sword in their academy. With Seika having already learned everything he wished to know, he decided to release the ugly loser but told Satori to eat him as a reward. At that moment, Satori devoured him, but when she was done, the menace began reading Seika's own mind as he felt bad for killing an innocent man. However, Seika grew angry and threatened to kill her where Satori stood, so as he decided to summon the portal, Satori returned quickly. With the coast clear, Seika called for his bird, and as it retrieved the message, he decided to open it. However, it was written in an unusual code, and Seika wished he had asked how he could decode the message. Luckily, he had already discovered the Magic Academy's true motive of trying to make Mabel win, so the demons would be convinced she was the true hero, forgetting about Amu's existence. When Yuki wondered if he had discovered why the headmaster chose him for the second slot, Seika revealed that he would figure out the entire truth in a matter of time. The following day, when the semifinals were about to begin, Mabel confronted Seika in the tunnel and told him to forfeit, saying that the tournament was nothing close to what he thought it was. Unwilling to allow her to decide his future, Seika told her that he would not forfeit the round. She then told him that she was not willing to lose to him and was even willing to kill him, but even so, Seika would not heed her words. When it was time for the first round of the semifinals, the first mage appeared in the arena. When Kyle arrived as his opponent, Rhaenys, the four-element master, cast a light spell to protect himself from Kyle's vile eye. But the menace began to approach him. Desperate to keep him away, Rhaenys launched a fireball towards him, but Kyle was unscathed and continued walking anyway. With Rhaenys scared for his life, he began launching more fireballs and blasted him with every single element. But with Kyle still completely unscathed, Seika realized that Kyle was using gravity magic to repel all his attacks. Just then, Rhaenys summoned an army of golems, but Kyle cast a purple shadow that pierced them at the same time, shattering them to pieces. As Rhaenys thought he could end him, he began rushing at Kyle, but Kyle managed to restrain him with his shadow. When Kyle raised his sword to end his life, a whistle went off and the announcer revealed that the judges had called off the fight, declaring Kyle the winner. That night, while Seika began wondering if he should forfeit his match the next day, he noticed that Yuki was snuggling close to his body. Seika's owl spotted Mabel on his roof, and as he dived out of the way, the roof collapsed onto his bed. Through the smoke, he spotted Mabel on the other side and wondered why her ugly face was caught blocking him. Without an answer, she hurled a knife at the wall and immediately tackled him out of the window. He managed to kick her off, creating a distance between them, but as she hurled another knife at him, Seika managed to dodge it. At that moment, he tried to restrain her, but when she sliced the vine and stabbed his body, he disappeared before her eyes. To blast her away, he cast a spell of internal release, but she managed to remain in balance. As Seika thought about how strong she was, he realized he could not allow her to escape. At that moment, an ugly loser appeared in the alley, wondering why they were making noise. But as Mabel nearly ended his life, Seika discovered she had escaped. However, he had already made up his mind for the next round of the tournament and thought he must find her before dawn. Before long, he found her by a fountain and assured her that he hadn't come to fight. When she asked why he was there, he explained that he only wanted to talk, and that she still had a chance to convince him to withdraw from the match. He then revealed that he already knew her true intent. She planned to die in Amu's place. As the false hero, she had been diverting the demon's attention away from Amu, believing that by sacrificing herself, they would think the real hero was dead. However, Mabel admitted that she also wanted to kill Kyle, confessing that both of them had been trained by the Rugrock Merchant Association, an organization that turned enslaved children into mercenaries. Their association had created this tournament to test Kyle's ability as a perfect mercenary. They had opened a hole inside his skull to implant magic into his brain, taking away every form of his emotions. Before this process, the slave children were put into groups of 4 and trained together until they formed a special bond. However, only one of them would be made into a mercenary, and only after eliminating the others would he be considered a perfect mercenary. With Mabel being the last survivor after Kyle, she thought it was her duty to end him in the finals, seeing as he had already killed her brother. But after hearing those words, Saika thought she was not only flat, but also a liar. He knew that Kyle was actually her brother and that her red hair was only a disguise to convince everyone that she was the hero. Realizing he had discovered everything, she decided to reveal the truth and said she intended to kill Kyle to free his soul. However, Seika thought she was too weak to do so and said he would defeat Kyle in the finals. As she began thinking it was not possible, he told her that he was the strongest man in their world and believed that Kyle's only desire was to see her free from the association. The following day, when it was time for their round, he told her to give it her best shot. She, however, thought he was just a useless noble kid who had been spoiled his entire life. As she flashed behind him, she nearly slashed him in half, and as she destroyed the rubble, she sliced him apart only to realize it was a piece of paper. As he launched rocks that she evaded, Mabel shot her knives towards him, but he blocked them with a barrier. As the dust settled, he unleashed binding vines to restrain her, but she charged forward until Sika activated his falling fruit spell. When he cast a spell of chemical binding vines, they restrained her again, and this time she realized she could not break free. Deciding to lift her axe, he then cast a floating spell, and as he pretended to end her life, the whistle went off as the judges ended the round, declaring him the winner. When it was time for the final round, Saika and Kyle faced off, and as Saika began saying that Mabel was still alive, Kyle told him that he would kill her after their tournament. Even though he remembered that she was his sister, he had completely lost every emotion for her, so Saika vowed to make him apologize to Mabel. As the round began, Saika cast red mist all around the arena floor, rendering Kyle's evil eye useless. When Kyle began walking towards him, Sika blasted him with ghost light, but Kyle remained unscathed. Sika then summoned chemical binding vines to restrain him, but the purple shadow destroyed them instantly. Kyle cast his shadow towards Sika, but his barrier repelled it. Sika thought their fight was useless, so the divine gates of hell appeared before Kyle's eyes. At that moment, he summoned Usioni, the fifth deity. As the monster emerged from the dimension, Kyle's shadows tried piercing its body, but its skin was stronger than steel. The beast bashed Kyle's face, knocking him unconscious, so Saika thought Kyle had lost because he was never able to recognize his own limits. But as a seal began spreading across Kyle's body, the curse started eating away at him, even inside the barrier. Sika wondered how he could save him, but Kyle stopped him and asked him to apologize to Mabel on his behalf. Sika grew angry at the thought of being bested by a curse, so he summoned 1,000 talismans at the same time. Looking to neutralize the curse, he prepared to cast a spell that would remove it from Kyle's body and even revive him from the dead. But as a beacon pierced the heavens, Yuki told him that it was dangerous to use his ultimate spell, since everyone in the arena would discover his secret powers. This mistake had cost him his previous life, and as the memories returned to his mind, Sika decided to stop the spell. By the time the fight was over, Kyle had mysteriously disappeared, and Saika told everyone that he destroyed him without a single trace. After the tournament, however, he buried Kyle outside the capital, allowing Mabel to pay her last respects. She told him that she already knew her brother was cursed. The following day at their academy, Saika visited the headmaster's office and revealed that he had saved Mabel just as she hoped. She then realized that he had already discovered everything. She explained that it was all part of the association's plans from the very start, as the only purpose of the tournament was to test Kyle's ability as a mercenary. Afterwards, Saika arrived at the cafeteria and noticed that Mabel had dyed her hair purple, but he thought she somehow looked even uglier now. A few weeks later, as summer break approached, Saika announced that he would be traveling to the kingdom of Asteria to investigate a rampaging dragon. Just then, an arrogant stranger entered the cafeteria, boasting loudly about his wealth and belittling the students around him. Amu frowned, wondering who the obnoxious newcomer was. The man soon noticed Saika and strode over, introducing himself as Cecilio, the crown prince of Asteria. Sika politely welcomed him to the academy, but Cecilio's attention quickly shifted to Yifa, whom he declared the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Attempting to flirt, he made a series of inappropriate remarks toward her. Yifa calmly revealed that she was Sika's servant, hoping to end the conversation. Cecilio, however, continued his crude behavior, leaving everyone around them deeply uncomfortable. Cecilio then told Sika to name her price, but his assistant, Lise, quickly told him that he was embarrassing himself in front of the others. In a private room, Cecilio told Sika the rogue dragon had lived peacefully for a century but was now attacking the castle, and the situation worsened by the day. Just then, he noticed Yifa's massive cannons and began suggesting they have dinner together, but Lise told him to restrain himself. As Sika left later that day, Amy dragged him into the bushes and demanded answers. When he admitted he would give Yifa to Cecilio's harem if she agreed, the girls found him pathetic. Knowing Yifa's feelings for him, Mabel warned him to never to ask her such a thing, fearing it would only hurt her. A few days later on the road to Asteria, Yifa told Sika that Cecilio had asked her to ride his dragon, though she doubted he wanted her in his harem. Sika insisted he was serious, but wondered what awful feeling brewing inside of him was. Upon reaching Asteria, Yuki admired the view until Cecilio arrived, lamenting the kingdom's decline since the dragon's rampage. As the beast flew overhead, a man summoned a lava tiger that lunged at it and missed. Then he turned on Yuki, so Sika stopped the menace with ice crystals, but the tiger's blazing armor melted them easily. As the tiger leapt toward Sika instead, a magical chain restrained it, and its summoner Zekt appeared at that moment. When Sika asked who the ugly addict was, Cecilio revealed he was the mercenary leader hired to slay the dragon. Sika mocked his ruined face until Cecilio broke it up and ordered Zeke to leave. Once he left, Sika turned on Yifa, and as she tried to thank him, he scolded at her for not using magic, wondering what she would have done without him and if bringing her was a mistake. As Yuki cried, Cecilio tried to riz her, but Seika stopped him from doing so before ordering Yifa to use magic next time since hesitation could cost her life. Seika left and regretted his harsh words, yet hoped she would learn because in his past life he had frozen while his student was devoured by his dragon, sealing it only afterward. Fearing history would repeat with Yuki, he chose harshness to protect her. The next day they read about the dragon and learned it once lived with a mate on the mountain but began attacking after hatching young. Seika suspected the same scenario, though records claimed only the male survived. Yifa asked how it could hatch offspring alone, so Seika resolved to climb the mountain for answers despite Yifa's warning it would kill him. That night, Yifa came to his room telling him that Cecilio had invited her to polish his sword, so Seika offered her to stay the night with him instead. When he asked if she joined Cecilio's harem, she refused and questioned why he asked. Believing he didn't think her worthy, she vowed to do whatever he wanted, but Seika told her that joining a royal harem was the greatest honor most girls wished for. When she wondered if he was okay with her leaving him, Seika revealed that he would be upset at first but would be happy that she chose her own path. Hearing those words, she told him that she would sleep while she stayed crying all throughout the night. The following morning, he noticed that she was gone, and even Yuki felt bad for how worthless he was, because Yifa was actually in love with him. But Seika thought it was only a crush, but Yuki told him it was more than that and wished he would realize it before it was too late. As he met Cecilio during his tea time, he told him that he was going up the mountain to find the dragon. As Cecilio heard these words, he realized it would take Seika a few days to return and thought he would have enough time to persuade Yifa. But Seika could already guess his thoughts and hoped he would stay far away from her. Later that day, as Lise appeared before Yifa and asked to speak with her in private, she told her that she had already sensed her magic and revealed that she was a descendant of elves. She explained that the elementals must have led her to them and asked her to join Cecilio's harem since she couldn't continue to be Seika's slave forever as he was a demon after all. This was why the elementals refused to approach him, just as they would avoid any other demon. Yifa, however, was certain Seika couldn't possibly be a demon and reminded Lizzie that they had grown up together. Lizzie, unconvinced, suggested that one of Seika's parents might have been a demon. She warned Yuki to stay away from him and offered to show her around the mansion instead. Meanwhile, Seika reached the mountaintop where a dragon spotted him and unleashed a burst of fire. His barrier shielded him from the attack. As the dragon lunged forward, Seika vanished, summoning the sixth deity, Kokyu Koniki, an enormous, grotesque stone creature that dropped onto the dragon's back. It emitted a piercing sound that weakened the beast before returning to the gates of hell. When the dragon began to recover, Seika trapped it successfully and entered its nest, where he discovered it was guarding an egg. He decided to relocate it. Upon noticing that each end of the egg needed to face upward, he realized the legend of the Asteria princess who once hatched a dragon egg had been true. Back at Cecilio's mansion, Lizzie continued showing Yifa around, telling her that she could earn special treatment if she became Cecilio's most favored wife. On top of that, she would be allowed to participate in the government and would even become a powerful official. But Yifa's only desire was to stay at Seika's side. Seika had grown exhausted from moving the dragon egg, and even the dragon had decided to make him the egg keeper. However, Seika was glad that the dragon was no longer out of control, and as it drew him closer, he realized that it was growing attached to him. At the mansion, as Yifa came across Cecilio, he began wondering if she was finally willing to join his harem, hoping Lise had successfully persuaded her. Right then, one of his men began to draft a price for her liberation tax, and Cecilio revealed that he was preparing paperwork for her freedom. Once the contract was completed, she would be free to make her own decisions, and Cecilio said he was willing to buy her freedom for any price. Afraid of being separated from Seika, Yifa told him that she was willing to live as a slave forever. But Cecilio thought she was simply confused and told her that he would definitely buy her off. He was convinced that Seika was dangerous and said he could not allow her to remain with the menace. However, Yifa thought he was the menace and declared that she wished to stay with Seika forever. Even so, the men thought completing her slave contract was more important. His words made Yifa realize she was surrounded by a bunch of mentally ill morons. As the guards seized her immediately, Lise threatened to end her life if she tried to use magic. Realizing they had been sealed inside a barrier, Lise launched a wind lance past her body, nicking her thumb. As she tried to force her hand on the contract, the dragon broke the barrier at that instant. Just then, Seika appeared from the dragon's head, and Yifa was glad that her savior had arrived. Seika revealed that he had managed to befriend the beast. While everyone was still shocked, he continued by saying that the dragon would no longer attack their kingdom, but Cecilio must keep the dragon egg warm. With Yuki able to use fire magic, Seika thought she could keep the egg warm and called her to join him on the dragon. When Lise tried telling her to return, Yifa declared that Seika was the love of her life, so as they rode away on the dragon, but when Seika asked her what she meant by that, she told him that she did not say anything. After arriving on top of the mountain, Yifa noticed the dragon egg, but as the ugly summoner called forth the lava tiger, it tried to devour them, yet Seika trapped it using ice crystals. At that moment, Zect and his team of losers appeared, and as Seika realized they had been trying to steal the dragon egg, Zect vowed to kill him so that he could protect his secret. As the tiger melted through the fortress and rushed toward them, a tall fountain blew it away, and Seika realized it was Yifa's magic. She had managed to awaken the magic inside her ring and told Zect that she was about to send him back to rehab. Desperate to eliminate them, Zect directed the tiger to attack again before commanding his men to follow for support. With Seika completely unfazed, he cast a spell of white flames, obliterating the tiger instantly. But when Zect tried commanding the men to attack, the dragon appeared before their eyes. The sight scared the life out of them, and they began running away. However, Seika captured them with binding vines, and Yifa burned Zect's spellbook. After she neutralized him, him, Sika said that he was glad she had become stronger and thought she was amazing for learning water magic. A few hours later, after they returned to the mansion, Sika explained everything that had happened. Cecilio decided to send the men to prison, but as he wondered how Sika had made peace with the dragon, Sika revealed that he helped it to raise its egg and believed the legend about the queen was true. Her desire to hatch the dragon egg had made the dragon take her as family and protect the kingdom for centuries. Suddenly, Cecilio told his knights to arrest Sika, saying he was responsible for making the dragon go rogue. Sika agreed to follow the knights, but when Cecilio began telling Yifa that she was finally free and could now become his woman, Sika smacked his hand away, having had enough of his BS. Sika told him that he had only gone along with his arrest because of their useless politics, but realized Cecilio had only been after Yifa this entire time. He called him a spoiled little kid and told him he could never give Yifa away. At that moment, Lise realized she had seen enough and asked to know Yifa's own feelings. Without hesitation, Yifa told Cecilio that she wanted to stay by Sika's side forever because even if she was no longer his slave, she would never join his useless royal harem. After he was rejected, Lise told Cecilio that his haircut was the reason, and as she thanked Sika for taming the dragon, she asked to speak with Yifa in private. Inside a different room, Lise realized that Yuki was in love with him, so she asked for her hand, giving her the ability to tame the light element. She thought Yifa was just like the elven princess in the legends and believed that Sika would recognize her love for him one day. Meanwhile, in a forest, a group of sorcerers were eliminating monsters. As the leader appeared before a random man, he asked to know where the hero was. However, a huge monster appeared at that moment, and the man was glad he had managed to summon the one-eyed monster with the last ounce of his magic. As the leader drew his sword, the giant slammed him with its axe, but it snapped in half. Looking to eliminate it, the leader flashed forward, and as he repelled the monster's attack with a dispel circle, he slayed it instantly. When he returned to the man, he commanded his comrades to devour him and hoped to find the hero soon. Back at the Magic Academy, Saika invited Amu to visit his family during spring break and also asked Mabel to come along as the third wheel. As he prepared to leave, however, he felt little excitement about returning home, already dreading the unwelcome guest at their mansion. He feared that his mere presence might attract attention and lead to his downfall once again. The next day at Saika's estate, Luft greeted them, and Saika noted that he looked slightly less unpleasant than before. Moments later, Glai appeared in armor, shouting Saika's name, and Saika wondered if he was enjoying life in the army. Still remembering his previous humiliation, Glai demanded a rematch, but Yifa suddenly revealed that he was the same bully who had tormented her in the past. Amu then stepped forward and offered to fight in Sika's place. When Glai mocked her, Sika declared that she was stronger than him and that he would only accept Glai's duel if he could first defeat Amu. Eagerly, Glai agreed, insisting she use a real sword while he fought with wood. Confident in Amu's victory, Sika allowed the duel on the condition that no magic be used. Amu pressed Glai hard, driving him back, but when she moved to finish him, he feigned a spell and struck her sword away, claiming victory. When she called it cheating, he argued that tricks were fair in battle before turning to Sika and declared that he had heard of his tournament win and challenged him as a worthy opponent. At that moment, Princess Fiona arrived, wondering why her holy knight intended to fight in a duel. She thought the fight was meaningless and told Glai to give his meaningless life a true purpose. As Glai decided to withdraw from the fight, Sika wondered how she managed to force him to listen. Glai then introduced Princess Fiona to them, and the others were shocked to realize they were meeting the Holy Princess. While inside the mansion, Yuki began wondering who the Holy Princess really was, so Sika revealed that she was born from a priestess and that her father was the emperor. Inside a private room, the princess began saying that she had been waiting to meet them and thought Amu looked exactly like the hero in the fairy tales. As she noticed Sika, she decided to thank him for showing up and said she wished he would become one of her knights, but Sika told her that her wishes were as worthless as her face. That night, Fiona wondered if Yifa was Sika's girlfriend, but she began choking harder than she does on Sika's meat. While having a dinner, Blaze praised Sika for saving Asteria because the news had spread across nations, while his mother urged him to write more often. Hearing her voice for the first time, later on, Amu slipped into Sika's room, and he joked she shouldn't come just to duel with his sword. She then asked his plans after graduation, revealing she meant to return to adventuring. Sika recalled his promise in the dungeon where she said he would join her, though he had no idea what to do and wondered if she would teach him. She agreed, looking forward to their first time together before leaving him alone. Afterward, Yuki asked if he had forgotten he was only using Amu to hide his true power, but Sika said he could never forget that. The next day, as they took Princess Fiona on a tour of the town, Glai told him that they would need to work together to protect her. Then, she decided to hold Sika's hand as she hurried into the market. Before long, she noticed a young couple and began wondering how she could draw closer to Sika. Amu suggested they put their lives in danger, saying it creates a special bond. Thinking it was a great idea, Princess Fiona decided to lead them to a construction site, and as she suggested taking a closer look, she decided to draw Sika closer. Just then, a rope broke, and as the boards spilled toward them, Glai and Amu cast a spell at the same time, protecting them from the boards. However, Princess Fiona was disappointed that Sika cast no spells, having expected to be saved by him instead. To make it up to her, Sika decided to buy Fiona a gift, and as he fixed her scarf in an alley, he summoned a quartz mirror to give her a good view of herself. She thought it was pretty and told him that she loved his gift. The next day, Sika found Glai training and wondered if he was showing off as a holy knight, but Glai said the title wasn't as great as it sounded because it was a political move by the princess, chosen not for his skill but as part of Princess Fiona's secret plan. After all, she was a politician, but she was also able to maneuver her way from nothing to becoming the favorite for the throne. When Sika wondered how this was possible, Glai told him that Princess Fiona could see the future just like her mother, who was the Oracle Princess. For this reason, she had asked to see Amu, knowing already that she was the hero. But as Glai realized that Sika had known already, he warned him to stay out of her way. Glai explained that she was working toward taking over the empire, but Sika thinks there was more to it. Later that day, when Princess Fiona began searching the mansion for Sika, he hid in the bushes, already tired of seeing her face. As Amu passed by, Sika suddenly jumped out, nearly startling her. When she realized he was hiding from Princess Fiona, Amu suggested he spend the day with her instead, noting how desperately Fiona was trying to find him. A short while later, Sika joined Princess Fiona on the balcony where she invited him to play a game of chess. He accepted, but before they began, Fiona proposed a wager. The loser would owe the winner a favor. Though Sika knew he would likely lose, he agreed anyway. As the game began, Princess Fiona asked which chess piece he thought was the strongest. Sika replied that it was her, saying she wielded influence over soldiers and leaders alike while staying in the shadows. Fiona praised his clever answer but said it was only partly right. She explained that the true mastermind always hides from view, yet she believed the pawns were the strongest because when ordinary people unite, they have the power to topple an empire. For this reason, she sought to gain the support of the people, believing it would secure her position as the first choice for the throne. At that moment, Princess Fiona confidently declared that she would win the game, yet Sika already knew she had glimpsed the future, and realizing he had uncovered her ability, she assumed Glai must have told him. Sika, however, revealed that he had figured it out on his own. From the moment she interfered in his sparring match with Glai, he suspected she had foreseen Glai's defeat. Then, when she led him to the spot where the rope conveniently fell on them, it confirmed to him that she could predict the future. When Sika asked whether she intended to save the empire using this power, Princess Fiona confessed that the future was not absolute, explaining that it could always change. Realizing he could not possibly win the match, Sika accepted defeat. At that moment, Princess Fiona confessed that she intended to save someone who was nearing death, though she hesitated to reveal their identity out of fear that doing so would alter the future. Deciding to become her ally, Sika offered his assistance. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the group of demons had annihilated an army of bandits. Their captain praised his men for growing stronger and commanded them to devour the corpses. With his appraisal spell, allowing him to see the strength of others, Zolnem was confident that they could ensure their success in killing the hero. Back at the mansion, Sika and the others prepared to return to the academy. However, after traveling for several hours, Sika sensed something strange about the forest. Suddenly, a carriage exploded in front of them, but it was only a decoy Princess Fiona had set up. Sika immediately leapt onto the roof to scout for their attackers. At the same time, a group of men fled into position as bandits appeared on a cliff. At their leader's command, archers aimed at Princess Fiona's carriage, so Sika cast his magnetic spell, deflecting all arrows then with ease. The leader ordered his men to fire again, but the same spell repelled their shots just as easily. Staring at the display, the bandit leader wondered who Sika truly was. Realizing that most of the carriages were decoys, he ordered his men to focus their full magic on Princess Fiona's carriage. One of them cast a powerful spell, hurling a massive boulder at Sika, but it crumbled harmlessly against his barrier. As the bandit leader grew desperate, he ordered his men to charge head-on. But Glai emerged from the carriage, relieved that the archers had exhausted their arrows. With a shout, he rallied his men, and together they began to overpower the bandits. Princess Fiona then instructed Sika to capture them alive, so Sika summoned binding vines that coiled around the bandits, restraining them in that instant. A few minutes later, Sika asked Princess Fiona why she had chosen to spare their enemies, wondering if she planned to use them against her political rivals. Princess Fiona answered that her only goal was to uncover the men who had plotted her assassination. Sika argued that keeping them alive was dangerous, but Princess Fiona insisted she was safe now. She explained that the other bandits had already been annihilated and that the captured survivors would wait forever for a signal that would never arrive. Days later, the group reached the capital, but before heading inside, Princess Fiona assured Sika that she was on their side and told him never to forget her. At the same time, the group of demons advanced toward the capital. Zolnem wondered whether they would truly manage to escape after killing the hero, yet his resolve never wavered. Determined to end her life for the sake of the demon race, he gazed at the distant city, convinced their future was about to begin. A few weeks later, the headmaster offered Sika a position on the student council. Yuki worried that this might attract unwanted attention, but Sika assured her that he was being overly cautious and that perhaps he didn't need to hide his strength anymore. Meanwhile, Zolnem and his group reached their destination, intending to locate and eliminate the hero at the Magic Academy. Before entering, Loni made an odd remark about enjoying large carrots down his throat, prompting Mudarev to scold him and tell him to focus on the mission. With that, the group began their mission and teleported to the school grounds. As they arrived, Gannis grew confused about the sudden appearance of fog, so he cast a fire spell, which revealed two students. He immediately attacked them with his flames, and at the same time, Loni and Pyrrhus were also puzzled by the fog. Suddenly, they noticed someone running through it, so Loni summoned shadow wolves and waited for them to return with results. Elsewhere in the fog, Mudarev appeared, confused by the haze, when suddenly he was attacked and became excited. Mabel then appeared, quickly realizing that he was Mudarev and not just a mere ugly ogre. Mudarev declared his intention to eliminate Mabel, but she refused to die and immediately launched her attack. Mudarev dodged her strikes and countered, but Mabel retaliated with full force, making him realize that she was indeed a worthy opponent. Suddenly, Mabel activated her magic and Mudarev realized too late that he had fallen into her trap. However, he only laughed, praising her effort before freeing himself. Mudarev then launched a brutal counterattack with his massive club, and when the dust cleared, he noticed that Mabel had already vanished. Moments later, the demons began to sense that something was wrong. They discovered that all the figures they had encountered so far were Saika's Shikigami. Then Saika himself appeared, glaring down at them as if they were nothing more than insects before acting like a god, and declaring that he would give them divine punishment. Zalmnem was enraged and used his appraising skill, only to be left in shock by what he saw. Mudarev stepped forward and challenged Saika to a duel, but before he could finish speaking, Saika instantly obliterated him with a laser beam spell. The demons were stunned, and Pyrrhus Relia swore vengeance for her fallen comrade. She unleashed her evil eye, activating Medusa's power in an attempt to turn Sika into stone. Sika mocked her, saying her spell was useless, and summoned Hakuta, massive white snake. Before she could turn him into stone, Pyrrhus Relia clutched her chest and died from the overwhelming aura of Hakuta. Saika explained that she never had a chance, so Loni summoned his monster. However, Hakuta unleashed its conqueror's haki for the second time, crushing the beast instantly. Desperate, Loni attempted to tame the Ayakashi, but he failed and was devoured like a crispy Castodon. Zalmnem was left dumbfounded as Saika dismissed Hakuta and returned it to the Shadow Realm. Gannis planned to stall for time, but Zalmnem refused and ordered his comrade to flee. Zalmnem declared that Saika was the Demon King and that they stood no chance of victory. When Saika proclaimed that he would protect the hero, Zalmnem was stunned, unable to believe that the Demon King was fighting on the side of humans. Saika, growing impatient, began preparing a spell. Zalmnem urged Gannis to escape while he unleashed his strongest attack. Saika did not hold back, for he retaliated with a devastating wave of lava. Zalmnem was defeated on the spot while Gannis barely managed to escape. As he retreated, he still could not believe that the Demon King stood with humanity. But before he could recover, Gannis felt a sudden slash across his body. From hundreds of kilometers away, Sika had eliminated him with his terrifying exorcist powers. Afterward, Mabel appeared, convinced that Mudarev had belonged to the Demon Emissary Association and had been sent to assassinate her. Sika calmed her down, explaining that the enemy's true target had been Amu. He assured her that he had already taken care of it and asked her to keep the matter a secret. Later that evening during dinner, Sika learned that Amu was completely unaware that the demons had been after her. At that moment, a unit of soldiers under Marquis Grebel appeared, announcing the arrest of Amu and accusing her for the crime of slaying of a demon emissary. Amu was shocked, and Sika couldn't believe that one of the demons they had defeated had been a demon emissary. The knights demanded that Amu confess, but she had no knowledge of the alleged crime. Mabel and Yifa tried to defend her, yet Sika stopped them, assuring Amu that since she was innocent, nothing bad would happen. However, two knights grew enraged by Sika's faith in her and arrested Amu. Sika then confronted the headmaster, demanding to know the reason for her arrest and who was truly behind it. The headmaster responded that the academy would handle the matter, and Sika chose to trust her promise to do everything possible to save Amu, but he also knew that if nothing was done soon, Amu would be executed. Sika then reassured Yifa and Mabel that the school was already taking action, so they did not need to worry. Afterward, he summoned his dragon, preparing to rescue Amu himself. As he was about to ride it, Yuki expressed her concern, warning him that he would draw too much attention and that his peaceful life would come to an end. She also reminded him that he might repeat the tragic fate of his previous life. Seika refused to stop the rescue mission to save his beloved side chick at any cost, so with that resolve, he set off toward the capital to find Amu. Meanwhile, Amu was frightened as she sat locked inside a prison cell, fearing she would never see her friends again. Tears began to fall when suddenly someone appeared before her. At the same time, Seika flew into the capital with his dragon and used his talismans to locate Amu. He quickly tracked her down to the prison castle, but when Seika attempted to rescue her, the knights tried to kill him. One knight called for reinforcements, and soon Seika was bombarded with thousands of arrows. Demonstrating his overwhelming power, none of the arrows were able to pierce his defenses. He countered with a devastating attack using earth magic to crush the knights. As Seika made his way into the underground levels of the castle, more knights arrived to stop him. They rained him down fire arrows, but Seika retaliated with blue fire magic that engulfed them. Many were burned, yet they still refused to retreat, so Seika then summoned Kamaitachi that mercilessly cut them down. Together, Seika and Kamaitachi slaughtered countless knights in that instant, leaving them with no chance to even touch him. He roasted his enemies alive, and the soldiers perished without ever landing a blow. At last, Seika reached Amu and freed her, but Amu was furious with him, afraid that his reckless rescue would drag him into serious trouble. She refused to go with him, not wanting to endanger him further, but Seika revealed that she was the hero, and if she didn't flee, she would be executed. Suddenly, Glai appeared, and soon after, Princess Fiona joined them. Seika demanded an explanation, asking why Amu had been arrested and why Fiona wanted her executed. Princess Fiona explained that their nation had once been small and that the hero had long served as a symbol of peace. From her words, Seika realized that the demons targeted Amu to eliminate the cause of another war. He also learned that Amu could never grow as strong as the previous hero because his constant protection prevented her from facing danger and gaining strength. Even so, Sika refused to let Amu die. Fiona then offered to ensure Amu's safety and promised Sika would not be arrested as long as he left immediately. Sika declined, saying he couldn't be sure he could trust her. Disheartened, Princess Fiona accepted his choice and Glai expressed disappointment in his younger brother. Fiona prepared a carriage to help them escape. Amu thanked her and Sika discovered that Fiona had cared for Amu during her imprisonment, visiting her often and giving her a blanket. Realizing her kindness, Sika apologized for doubting her before they parted ways. Later, he returned to the fallen knights he had mass isekai'd and revealed his true power by reviving them. The two girls who witnessed it were stunned by the magnitude of his magic. With Amu beside him, Sika prepared to move on, knowing they would have to leave the academy behind. Meanwhile, Princess Fiona met with a shadowy figure who asked who Sika truly was. She revealed that he was the current demon king who protected the hero. Afterward, Sika wrote to his friends, and together they decided to drop out of school and begin new adventures. Soon after, Sika and Amu reunited with their companions in a nearby town, starting their new lives as adventurers.